On behalf of the Center for the Liberal Arts, welcome. I'd like to begin by thanking our co-sponsors for the event, the Reef Center for International Studies, the Muscarelli Museum of Art, the Arts and Sciences Dean's Office, the American Indian Resource Center, and the Native American Student Association. The College of William & Mary has launched an exciting and rigorous new curriculum. For our students and faculty, this curriculum is an avenue to increasing intellectual agility and to responsible global citizenship. A key part of the curriculum is what we are calling the COLL300s. The COLL300 experience, international or cross-cultural, takes us away from our familiar surroundings and ways of thinking to stimulate a fruitful experience of disorientation. And as the director, Julie Taymor, once said, never underestimate the importance of being disoriented. The on-campus part of COLL300 brings the world to William & Mary. Each semester will feature a theme which COLL300 courses will align. And distinguished visitors to the college also aligned with this theme will share their lived life experiences, accomplishments, and wisdom. Our inaugural theme is unrest in any of its manifestations: intellectual, creative, cultural, political, artistic. I'm honored to introduce our visitor, the Haida artist, Robert Davidson, who's sitting down there, who embodies all those things with grace. This morning, while speaking to students, Mr. Davidson said, when a person has a greater sense of their own history, that person has a better chance to move forward. Mr. Davidson has spent a lifetime studying classical Haida art masterpieces, and this mastery has taken his own art to astonishing vibrancy. And his work and his life, perhaps inseparable, have catalyzed the renaissance of Haida culture. And now, Ashley Atkins Spivey, a member of the Pamunkey Indian tribe and doctoral student in anthropology here, will now offer a traditional welcome to Mr. Davidson.
Wingapo, thank you for having me here today. I'm honored to be here as a representative from my tribal community, the Pamunkey Indian tribe, whose reservation is located here in the state of Virginia and is actually one of the oldest continually occupied reservations in the United States. So I am honored to be here today as a representative of my community and to give this gift and honor to Mr. Davidson for his time here and sharing his special knowledge and art with the William & Mary community and with my community as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now, Mr. Robert Davidson's An Innocent Gesture.
Thank you, Carrie. I'm glad I can't see you all, so I don't have to be afraid. I would like to thank the people who brought me here. I'm very honored to be here. It's been a whirlwind, 2 days, to talk with the different students. I would like to open with a thought, the thought of the power of the visual mind. We all have that power, and some of you, I know at one time, all of you at one point in your life have witnessed it, especially when you've thought of someone that you haven't seen for a long time, and all of a sudden they're in front of you. That's what I mean about the power of the visual mind. And I know in the art world, that is where we work from. I didn't understand that power until it happened several times in my lifetime, over and over again. The first time it happened, my parents were building a house, and I was about 13 or 14, and I failed grade 8. And to encourage me to pass the next year, my dad promised me a bicycle, and I wanted so badly to have a bicycle. And in fact, in school, there was a friend of ours who owned a bike, and people from the village, New Masset and Old Masset are two separate villages. Old Masset is what you see right now, and New Masset is the white population. And this is in 1963, 62, 63, we would offer our friend who had the bicycle 25 cents to ride his bike. And anyway, this happened for 2 years. My dad offered me again the bicycle the next year, so it's 2 years have gone by and still no bicycle. And when I look back, the reason why he didn't fulfill his promise, him and my mother were building a house for us. And one day I was looking through the catalog and I saw the bicycle that I wanted. So all of a sudden I had a visual. And after visualizing that bicycle and me owning it, it came very easy. So I was able to earn money to buy that bicycle. And this project I will be talking about tonight, is another visual that I didn't realize I was tapping into that power. When I left Masset in 1965, I was 18 years old, and what you see here is, let me see. You see I didn't really know anything about who the Haida were. When I left Masset, I was 18 years old. And when I went to the city to finish grade 12, the people, the students, this is what they saw about the Haida. And this is where I was brought up. This was our playground. The ocean, or pardon me, the inlet, that we played on the beach, we played on the streets, and we played in the forest. So we had free reign on all three different places. So when I came back to Masset several times after living in the city, I would go and visit my elders who were my teachers, my grandparents' generation. And every time I came home, I felt an emptiness where our spirit lived. And so I had this inspiration to offer to the elders a totem pole. And the idea was for them to celebrate one more time in a way that they knew, in a way that they were denied because of the laws that governed us, because of the students being taken away, the children taken away. And I don't say it out of spite, I say it out of, it's just part of our history. And now the challenge I feel for us is to find a way through that pain and so we can live a more productive life. This will give you a sense of the size of the log. That's my grandfather here, and a friend. He was one of my teachers. The visuals that happened to make this happen, I remember promising to carve the totem pole. I'll carve it this year, but I never ever thought about where the log was going to come from. And in the winter time, the winter before I started carving it, my dad phoned me and said, "I found a log for you." I said, "Oh, wow." Like, I never even thought of where's that log going to come from. I never thought of it. But anyway, he found the log for me, and unbeknownst to me, the curator of the museum at UBC applied for a $3,000 grant to help me carve the totem pole. And this is all unbeknownst to me. So all the time after I made the commitment, I was visualizing the totem pole standing in the village. So all these doors start to open for me for this to happen. And through the summer, I was coached by my grandfather, Chini, and my grandmother, Nani, on what to expect and how to conduct the process. Chini was 89 years old here in 1969, and people from his generation had not witnessed a totem pole raising in their lifetime. He was born in 1880, so I can safely say the last totem pole was carved pre-1880 in Masset. On the day I came home, I went into my parents' house, my wife and I didn't want to look at the log at that point. I was terrified on what I committed to. And after we had lunch with my parents, then I looked out the window and saw this huge log. I said, wow, what did I get myself into? I didn't say it like that. So some of the questions I've been asked is how did I accomplish something that I haven't done on this scale before? I did some homework. I went to visit some artists, Bill Reed, Wilson Duff, who was an anthropologist at the time at UBC, Bill Holm, who has done an incredible analysis of the Northwest Coast art, and Doug Cranmer from the Quagga people, and they all gave me advice. Doug Cranmer, his advice to me was don't lose the center line. And when I went to see Bill Holm, he had a 10-foot totem pole in his house, and I asked him how long it took him, and he said 120 hours. So I used that as a guide in predicting how long it would take me to carve the pole, and little did I know that he had more experience than I did. So the first stage was to square up the back, as you can see there, and also to hollow it. I forgot I could see the visual here. So so I'm hollowing the log after it's squared up, and the reason for that is to the heartwood and the sapwood are the first two parts of the log to rot. So the heartwood serves two functions. One is makes it lighter to raise a pole, and also to prolong the life of the totem pole. Here, after it's been hollowed, it's been turned around to start carving on the front. I had a friend who came by for a couple of days to help me hollow it. In June, after school was out, my brother, who was 14 at the time, helped me full time on the project. That's my brother Reg. He's never carved before. He still has that cheeky grin. My dad started to build a shed, but because it was fishing season, he didn't have time to finish it. So the roof was half finished. So on a rainy day, we would carve on the sheltered side. On a nice day, we'd carve on the exposed part. We have a traditional fishing time in May, June. My grandfather, 89 at the time, and my grandmother, she was 15 years younger, so she would have been 74. They were fishing at the Yaccoon River at the time, and I would help them on weekends. Seeing the age of my grandfather, I would help them. And whenever I was at the river with them, Chinny would say, when I'm done here, I'm going to help you. And I just couldn't fathom someone of his age to make that commitment. But sure enough, after after he was finished fishing, I could still see him walking from his house to where I was carving. And he had a hammer and a chisel, and he was walking to where Reg and I were carving the pole. And it just that very act helped me to maintain my inspiration to finish the project. And I didn't really know at the time also that he was about 95% blind. And also I didn't know that he was such an incredible, accomplished canoe maker. And being very protective of this project, he asked me, he said, where can I carve? And so I'm still embarrassed today. I gave him a place where there's a lot of wood. And so he worked on it for about half an hour, and he said, I can't see. So, but even that gesture was so beautiful that he cared so much on what I was doing that it helped me to maintain my commitment. Here you will see the texturing. It's done with the special ads, one ticker at a time. I was asked earlier, where did I get the design for the totem pole? The photographs I showed you the photograph I showed you in the beginning, I chose one of the totem poles from that photograph to copy, and I chose something very simple because I didn't really have the experience to make something fancy. The whole project, 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, took Reg and I 3.5 months. And in the meantime, my grandparents invited the elders of the village to have meetings at their house. The day of the pole being moved, it was moved the day before it was raised, and all summer we had the most rain. It rained for about 3 months, solid. And on one of my visits to Nani's house, Nani and Chinny's house, I was lamenting. I said, I hope it doesn't rain on the pole raising day. And she, just like that, she said, it won't. And sure enough, the evening that we were moving the totem pole, the sky opened up, and the next day was absolutely beautiful. The evening before we moved the pole, you could see that the pole is on rollers, and we have skids for the rollers to roll, and a few dozen people from the village came to help move it. And I was there also helping to move it. And Chinny was directing the moving of the pole, and I was helping pull on the rope. And Chinny he had a cane, and he poked me with his cane, and he said, Robert, that totem pole doesn't belong to you anymore. So I was happy to step aside. He said, it belongs to them now. In one of the meetings, Chinny said to me that the head carver carries the tools that he used to chant around the pole before the totem pole is to be raised. And I was so shy to do it, I pretended to forget. But he insisted that I do it. And so I had to scurry up to gather up all my tools and do the chant. And the feeling was absolutely amazing. It felt like a championship game that we were winning, and that's the feeling I had. My dad here, Chinny. As you can see, it's a beautiful day. The totem pole is being, there was a trench dug down, and it went down about 8 feet. So that bare part was buried into the ground. Chinny directed the people on the process, and my dad directed the people on the ropes. On this rope here, there were four sets of ropes, 2 here and 2 there to pull it up, and once the pole was raised, 2 to hold it back, to hold it in balance. And 1 rope here is the raven clan pulling, and the eagle clan pulling on this side. And every time the totem pole was raised, an A-frame was used to brace it so the pullers can rest. The A-frame here. This is the school I went to. It's called the Indian Day School, run by the Department of Indian Affairs. At that time, there was a crane in the village, and they offered to raise the pole for us. And I asked the elders if we should use the crane, and they said no. So I was very pleased because it seemed more real to have the whole community behind the project. I'm amazed how those people got up on top of there. Once the pole was standing, the dancers, the people it was a spontaneous action where the dancers, the singers, they formed a circle around the pole and sang a song. There were 3 main surviving Haida villages, 4, 1 in Heidelberg, Alaska, that's where I'm from, and Masset and Skidegate. So all the people from the 3 villages, many people from the 3 villages came for this occasion. Nani, she was one of my teachers that helped me to learn and understand ceremony. And she was also fun to be with, as you can see. She had a great wit about her. On her 90th birthday, for example, she loved bracelets. I make jewelry, bracelets, and she loves bracelets. And so I didn't know what to give her, so I wrapped myself in ribbon. I said, Nani, look, I'm your present today. And she said, oh, good, you can make your gold bracelet for me. So that backfired on me. Chinny died 3 weeks later. He was amazing. My aunt saw him after the pole raising lying on the couch, and he one of the expressions we use, the old people use when they're tired is, ho, 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 ho. And I'm almost getting to that age where I can start using it. And that's what he was doing. He was tired, and he told my aunt, his daughter, he said, my job is done. And so he lived for that day. One of my teachers, another of my teachers, Victor Adams, my uncle, who was married to my dad's sister. Victor Adams' mother, Selena, another teacher of mine, Selena Peradovich. The person here is the town chief and his wife over here and other elders in the village, from the village. It was absolutely amazing to watch the old people, the joy it brought. And since then, since this totem pole raising, we now have, I think, 15 to 18 totem poles standing in the village of Masset, and at least a dozen in Skidegate. My dad. Here, the mother of my children and myself, we are presenting here to the chief counselor of Masset the totem pole at a feast that evening. Prior to this event, other feasts have happened, but they weren't called feasts. They were called Christmas dinners. For example, my grandparents would host 75 to 90 people in their house, and it would be under the banner of Christmas dinners because we couldn't have feasts or potlatches. And in 1905 or 1906, my grandmother's uncle, he owned a village that has since been vacated. There was still a totem pole standing, and when there was one of the storms that happened, the totem pole blew down, and someone from my clan, because he's Raven, the eagle, someone from the Eagle clan made fun of the totem pole because it fell. And to save face, Henry Edenshaw, my grandmother's uncle, threw a picnic, but it was really a face-saving feast. And he paid the people, he invited the people to the totem pole site and fed them and paid the people for being there. And this was to save face that his totem pole fell. And after the transaction transpired, he cut it up and burnt it. So the story I told is really to talk about the picnic instead of a space-saving feast. This is Nani, her lifelong friend, Selena Peradovich. I painted this design on plywood for the occasion. It was the unification of the eagle and raven working together. Normally, when a feast happens or a potlatch, it's either the raven or the eagle that gives the potlatch. In this case, it's a joint venture. These people are from Heidelberg, Alaska. What was amazing was each village had some knowledge that was different from each other, so it was exciting to see the joining of the knowledge from the 3 different villages. Chinny giving a speech. So now the door is opened. Where do we go from there? it's exciting because I didn't hear my first Haida song until I was 16. It's exciting today that children before they're born are now hearing Haida songs. And that through the song and dance, it's solidifying our connection to our cultural past. And in doing so, it creates a foundation for us to grow from. We've been wandering blindly for several decades because of the because we weren't connecting to our spirituality through our song and dance. And now it's very exciting. Even today, I question myself, why am I throwing this potlatch? And it's not to gain wealth, or it's not to gain prestige. It's more to continually educate ourselves on process. And the meaning behind this potlatch, Gya Isla, which means a giveaway feast, it's to honor the clans. Like, I feel we need to honor ourselves. So often we're in the doldrums, and when we have something to look forward to that will help us rise up again, I get excited. It's usually the day after or a month after that I start to enjoy what has transpired. So now I'm visualizing all kinds of things for this to happen. So at this point, I'm open. One more story here before I open the floor for interaction. As you can see, the many dancers, there was not one mask used, but we come from a culture of many masks. And so since then, I've carved many masks to be used at potlatches or feasts. This is a wild man, and usually it's a lot more grotesque. And when I showed it to Nani, she said, "Oh, I didn't know Guud was so handsome." So I rose to the occasion.